No need to.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Friday, May 15th Ways and Means meeting. If you'll stand with me and recite the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, everyone. All right, I've taken roll. So do I have a motion to approve the agenda, or do we have any additions or changes to the agenda?
We do. We have two amendments under committee action items C and D. These were approved and moved to Ways and Means from Public Works and Human Services.
Okay,
Support.
okay, moved and supported. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, on to the minutes from the April 10th meeting.
Make a motion to accept the minutes.
Moved and supported. Any discussion? Excuse me, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition? All right, and on to limited public comment, our first opportunity. If you'd like to speak to us, you have approximately 3 minutes. Step to the podium, identify yourself.
Good morning, Chairman, board members. My name is Doug Lloyd. I am your Eaton County prosecutor. I am here today to speak to you about item 15 that will be on your agenda. I apologize, I will not be able to be around for the time specific when you speak of it. It came to my attention through our controller, Ben Dawson, at our executive leadership meeting this last week, that item 15 is about a county wage study. And I am here to tell you that I am in support of that, and it is something that the board needs to consider. Our last wage study, and Ben, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it was 2014. I was here, I was the elected official. You know, I went through that with my staff as far as the work and time that was put into showing that Eaton County has been always and continues to be behind the curve in the wages that you provide our employees within this county. In 2014, that wage study was completed and nothing really came about it. We are now 12 years later. We still continue to be behind the curve as far as employees. Most of you have been here long enough to have heard me say these same words for the last decade. And for me, I believe it's time that we actually consider making the changes. We have done everything, we being you, have done everything necessary in order to right this ship. Between Controller Sobey and now Controller Dawson, they have worked hard along with the board to make sure that the ship is moving in the correct direction. But in order to make that work better, we need to have actual individuals who are going to want to roll with us. And they're not going to want to do that if they can go somewhere else and get paid more. So I am requesting that you actually discuss it today. I would request that you actually move it to the full board today so that it may be discussed by the full board. But I believe when Controller Dawson lays out his plan for the wage study, it will provide the opportunity to actually determine what should our employees be paid. It should determine whether we should take attorneys and other groups off the actual scale itself. This isn't unprecedented now. You know, there are employees that are off the scale. So it's something that the board should consider and should be looking at in order to make sure that we're actually bringing the best employees in and doing the best work. You know, for us, you know, I had two, you know, my deputy chief and one of my younger attorneys, Andrea Marty, both have successful wins this week on difficult cases. Those cases, you know, were only done because we've mentored and we've produced good employees. That's what we need to continue. That's what our constituents expect. Public safety is the item that is the most important to our citizens, and it's what government's main core function is to do. I'd ask you to consider that as we move forward in order to be able to provide those services to our citizens. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else?
Good morning, Matt Newberg from the Public Defender's Office. I agree with everything that Prosecutor Lloyd said, which is rare, but it's true. Here's the thing. I don't have the time with the county that Doug has had, but I have been involved in the last 5 or 6 months with hiring employees. And I spoke with Controller Dawson yesterday about some of the struggles that we have hiring, but also the threat to maintain the people that we do bring in. And I know that item 15 is coming up, and I agree with Doug, and I'm gonna encourage you guys to refer this to the board as soon as possible to have this wage study done. For example, we can hire people into the county based on the current scale, but maintaining those individuals as employees is where the real struggle is gonna happen. For the same assistant public defender job that we have here, the pay in Eaton County is about $20,000 to $25,000 less than Ingham. So we are running the risk of bringing people in, training them, working them through our system, only for them, right as they're starting to peak, to say, I'm gonna go across the street essentially and make more money. We don't wanna be a training ground for lawyers to go to another county. We wanna be the place where they come, stay, and work for long periods of time. I think that's really important. So I'm gonna ask that you guys, as you consider item number 15 today with that wage study, really think how you can push that forward and kind of move it to the forefront of what it is Ways and Means is going to do, and then also what the board can do. So I agree with what Prosecutor Lloyd said. I think it's an extremely urgent thing. We do every day run the risk of losing people to higher paying jobs after they've been trained here at the county. So I would ask that you guys move forward with that number. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, seeing no movement in the gallery, we will have another opportunity towards the end of the meeting. Okay, we are now at item number 7, committee action items. Item A, Public Safety MMRMA grant application for the full jail full body scanner administrative fee exception. What are we gonna do with that, Ben?
Administration would request, this would be something we wouldn't collect admin fee on. It's a piece of equipment. It's a capital expenditure item that was in the budget. We have an opportunity through MMRMA to get a potential $50,000 towards reducing the expense of that, which will help cover, I think it's a 3-year or 5-year warranty, 5-year warranty on that. This will be for all parties involved, a risk mitigation piece of equipment, and that's the reason it was approved as part of the budget. The administrative duties and just administering this small grant aren't significant, which is why we're requesting that there be no admin as we move forward with the purchase.
So no action to be taken.
Support.
Sorry, what's that?
We need action on that.
Correct.
Okay.
Authorizing us to apply for the grant.
All right, before I got that out, it was already moved and supported, so you did a good job of presenting.
Yep.
it.
Jeannie, yeah.
Any discussion?
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Wright?
Where are we putting this?
Well, actually, we have the jail administrative captain available to answer such questions. Oh, welcome. Or, sorry.
It would be housed in the booking area of the sheriff's office. So as soon as individuals were arrested, brought into the facility, they would be run through this body scanner. And the thing's really an amazing piece of equipment. It's like a TSA type body scanner where it picks up foreign objects and, you know, contraband, whether it's drugs or hard objects like knives. So, but it would be held sheriff's office in the booking area.
So it won't be out in where our public or anybody would.
That's correct.
Thanks.
Commissioner Shaver?
Yeah. Controller Dawson, I know you said it's not significant, but can you just like, are we talking about a couple $1,000s or a couple $100s that we would be?
Oh, well, so here's the thing, in fact, Melissa and I had this discussion. This is really a reimbursement through our insurance carrier, but they call it a grant. And so literally it will just be us sending them the proof of purchase.
Oh.
And
Thank you.
yeah, technically it's a grant because that's what they put on the form, but it's our carrier giving us an incentive to reduce the risk of litigation and injury of employees
Good.
and personnel.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
Commissioner Wright.
I've seen something in our packet about it has like a yearly fee for, is it the warranty or something that's on it?
Yes.
We do. It comes with its initial 1-year warranty. We have an opportunity to buy 5 years of warranty up front, and it's considerably less if you buy it up front. If you go year to year, I believe it was right around $3,000 more per year if you don't buy it up front. So we're hoping that the grant will be used to cover, those fees.
Hopefully you'll end up with 5 years of a warranty.
It ended up being a total of 6, the
6.
1 year from the manufacturer and 5 from the one that we purchased, correct?
Thank you.
Yeah, and this will be in the original appropriation plus the grant, and then if there's any overage, the sheriff's department receives kind of a rebate through the Smart Comms contract that has to be used for technology or improvements for jail residents or jail personnel for technology. So we can utilize that money to do that. So this will not be a general fund expense beyond the original appropriation.
Okay.
Commissioner
Thanks for the
Barber.
answers, guys.
How many scans do you estimate per year? You know, like a TSA would be hundreds of,
Sure.
probably millions,
You know,
but
I had actually thought about that this morning. The amount of people that are booked in a 24-hour period that come in off the street, it can be 5 and it can be 15, 20. But that also will be scanning, we call them writs, people that are housed at other facilities that have court with us. They would also be scanned. Another option that came up the other day is we have a shortage of female deputies right now. We do not do cross-gender pat-downs, so it's gonna be a game changer when it comes to, there's no female on, we can still, this female arrest, be able to run them through the scanner. My estimate is 40 a day. Would, in one way, shape, or form, would be run through that piece of
I
equipment.
mean, it's gonna relieve pressure off of
Oh,
your
man.
deputies and increase the security of the whole
100%.
county.
It really is a game changer. It-
Okay.
Our guys are really good at finding contraband, but this thing's even better, so.
Yep.
You combine those two, yeah, we're really looking forward to it.
So what's the proposed lifespan of this thing?
We talked the other day, it's an unknown, they're fairly new pieces of equipment. Ingham County's been running theirs for about 10 years. I don't know what problems they've had in that 10 years, but we're hoping that 10 to 15-year timeframe or more. I think it'll be up against new technology, what comes out next, smaller pieces, who knows? But at this time, we're looking for a long-term usage out of this.
Okay, and this is upgradable or updatable?
That's my understanding, correct?
All right, any other questions this morning? All right, we have a motion on the floor. If there's no further discussion, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? All right. Next item, 7B, Public Safety Specialty Court Grant Application Administration Fee Exception.
So with the permission of the chair, Melanie Achenbach is actually here. She can help talk us through, but this is a group of grants that we renew as a slate on an ongoing basis. They make the various specialty court functions that the trial court makes available for folks that find themselves in the justice system available, and she can speak a lot more eloquently than me, so welcome.
Thank you. Good morning. I am Melanie Achenbach, the current Deputy Court Administrator, former Community Corrections Director. The information contained in your packet represents funding for the Community Corrections Department. The Community Corrections Department houses 5 employees and 5 problem-solving courts. Funding from these grants pays for employees' salaries, fringe benefits, various programming for individuals on probation, placed in problem-solving courts, or housed in the Eaton County Jail. Funding also covers the cost of supplies for the department, telephone, postage, printing, equipment repairs, liability and property insurance, and required training. This year, grant funding was utilized to send 9 staff to the annual Michigan Association of Treatment Court Professionals Conference. Each grant comes with its own nuances and allowable expenses list. Historically, Eaton County has received both state and federal funding to cover the costs of the Community Corrections Department. The administrative fee is not an allowable expense for any state funds received. The administrative fee is allowable for federal grants received. This year, that would be 1 out of 7 grants that this fee would be allowable for. The Controller's Office does assist with the grants by submitting monthly and quarterly expenditure reports, program income reports, as well as providing projected costs of employee salaries and fringe benefits needed for applications of next year's grants. The Community Corrections Director executes all other administrative responsibilities for these grants. That person will draft the applications, submit the applications, receive the award notifications, balance the budgets, draft and submits progress reports, processes billing, orders supplies, audits users in 2 required databases, audits data entry, verifies training is complete and submits verification of such, drafts and maintains or obtains signatures on required contracts, memorandums of understanding, and any other documents required. The 5-year average of support staff funding represents administrative expenses paid for with grant funding. Instead of those administrative funds being routed to the Controller's Office, which is not allowable for the majority of these grants, it's utilized to cover some of the costs of the Community Corrections Director. Does anyone have any questions?
Any questions? Commissioner Shaver.
Yes, Controller Dawson, could you just like estimate what the cost that we would be waiving is? I know we're not talking percentages, but are we talking hundreds, thousands, tens of thousands?
So we have a summary of historic information in the packet that we went ahead and broke down so you could see it by the court. It should be page 20. If I'm correct, Melissa, the 5-year average support staff grant funding. So the admin in question looks like $12,000 for the 5-year average.
So each of the courts between there, you're looking at about $500,000 between all of the grant funds. So approximately $50,000 for a 10% administrative fee. However, as you can see, the courts have actually utilized these funds to pay for their own administrative staff. So while it's not an administrative rate per se, they have been able to utilize the funds and leverage them to pay for those costs.
And my administrative recommendation would be to approve and continue the model that we've established with the variety of courts, just because administratively the bulk of getting the data and everything to maintain compliance with these grants is bore by the court. The general fund obligation over that 5-year period was $88,357. So that's how much the county contributes to make these services available for our court system. And that's 2 FTEs. I listed the grant funded and GF contribution, so you see where the $88,000 is spent.
Any other questions?
Good value. Good value for our investment.
Yeah.
For these grants.
Commissioner Commissioner Barber.
We're not going to do this. So my question is, you know, you're asking, you say out of all these grants, there's only one, the federal one that we can recoup, and you say, please don't recoup because we fund our employees through this, correct? So are these grants that you have to spend all the money in that year, or is there money left over? Or are we inflating costs somewhere on the ledger to prove that all the money was spent and we can't afford to pay the admin fee?
They are one-year grants. As far as inflating costs, no. Historically, Eaton County has asked for what we need and has spent the majority of the funding received. Last year, for these grants, I could break them down by grant, 93% was spent out of one, 79%, 91%, 86%, 94%. Some of them work together to accomplish a common goal, whether it's
Okay, but my question is how do we recoup the cost that it takes to process these grants? That's my question.
The bulk
So
of
either
these-
you can answer it, or you can answer it, or you can answer it, but I want an answer.
The bulk of the expenses are personnel expenses. The court has been very conservative about hiring staff and leveraging the funds within the programs that they have available. So,
So the general fund?
no, they have
No, no,
been.
no. So the general fund is going to cover the process of these grants?
The general fund has historically covered a portion of that, and that is the cost of the specialty court coordinator.
Okay.
That is in excess of what the grants have not been allowed to fund.
Okay.
Any other questions? All right. We have a motion.
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? Anything else you'd like to add?
No, thank you.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Opposition. Okay. All right, it has been moved. On to item 7C, Public Works and Human Services, Staff Sergeant Parker Gordon Fox Suicide Prevention Grant Administrative Fee Exception. Ben?
I will let Claudine and, sorry, Brandy take this.
Good morning, Brandy.
Morning. This grant was presented at Ways and Means on Wednesday. I do apologize, there was a miscommunication with Brandy and I. I thought she was asking for an administrative exception for the fee. She is not, so she can speak more to the grant, but it's just for a resolution to approve the grant. She will be including the admin fee.
Part of the reason, so the grant itself is a federally funded grant from the Veterans Administration, and it's an ask of $750,000. Do I know if we'll get that entire amount? No, but we're going to try for it. And we recognize that this grant has a lot of financial components. So our financial director, Ms. Ballard, her wages being paid with that 15% is important, and it is allowed within the grant. So we're not asking for the exception for that purpose. Within the state of Michigan, our veterans have a 14% suicide rate. In Eaton County, we have a 20% suicide rate, mostly by firearms. This is a non-clinical approach where we would be looking to utilize that grant to move our currently grant-funded part-time veteran service officer into more hours. And we'd be required to hire actual veterans to serve as peer-to-peer support groups. I've already been in contact with our Veterans Court. They're very excited about it, and they even have some veterans that they may recommend for those contract services. So this would also allow us to assist our local veterans with housing, food, medical bills, so much. We're pretty excited about it.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the authorization is for us to apply. If we get the funding, we will come back and then demonstrate how much we were awarded, what the admin would be on it, and then do an approval to accept it.
That is correct.
I'll move the resolution.
Moved and supported. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
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 Any opposition? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brandy. Moving on to item 7D, Public Works and Human Services Crandall Park Main Entrance Engineering and Construction Bids.
All right, Chad's coming up.
Good morning, Chad.
Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. I spoke earlier this week at Public Works and Human Services about this project, and so forgive me if it's repetitive, but I'll go back over some of the stuff I mentioned on Wednesday. We previously adopted a conceptual plan, a strategic plan for our park system. Helped me with the date, Claudine, a couple years ago, 24, 25. So essentially, this is the next step in the process for development at Crandall Park. We currently have the one single entrance off M50 that has been there since the park's inception, since we acquired it back at that time. Part of the strategic plan is to have the main entrance of Crandall Park off of Flanders Road, which is to the west. The way that the lake was excavated and mined, that end of the lake is sloped for a beach. So it was planned for a beach on that end, the west end of the lake. So part of this, what I'm going to present here is the development of that road off of Flanders, completely changing the landscape of the park and the accessibility for the public, and then also would be development of that beach. So it'll really change the usage in a positive way. So that's a little synopsis. So fast forward a little bit, back in March, I drafted an RFP for civil design. As part of that, we obviously need to make sure our road and everything is designed to the standards that are required. So as I mentioned at Public Works, I'm real comfortable in giving conceptual numbers and preliminary estimates for building projects, not so much with civil projects. I'm not as familiar and comfortable giving you guys project estimates for that. So we reached out to 5 local design firms. 3 responded with proposals, and as a committee of Controller Dawson, Deputy Controller Williams, Parks Director Ethan Jacobs, and myself interviewed all 3 firms, and we're making a recommendation today. I'm making that recommendation for HRC, which is Hubble, Roth, and Clark. And when we interview, we kind of look at the whole picture, completion of the RFP. Price is obviously is a factor. The overall understanding of the project, do they seem to get what our goals are and what we're asking for? And do they have experience with similar projects? And then it's a kind of a, I say, fit and feel of how we feel that we're gonna work with our team at the county. And you try to get that all in an hour interview with a, similar how you would interview a prospective employee. So we want to know that they're going to partner good with us and have our best interests in mind as they design and work through this project. So we looked at that, and what's before you today is the proposed design budget. I should mention that I've enlisted a project manager services, so that's what you see before you, more Trosper Construction, to manage the project for us, just because of the staffing and capabilities. It would take a lot of my time and dedicated staff time to dedicate to that full time, and we just don't have those resources. So that is the proposal that we'd like to move to the full board and get started with the design of the project. The schedule for all 3 firms were similar, with the design and all of the geotechnical and wetland delineation, all the front end stuff would happen this spring, summer, and then of 26, and then getting into fall, winter of 26, we'd be ready for construction proposals. We'll bid it out at that time and then be ready for shovels in the ground in the spring of 27. And then with completion late summer, early fall of 27. So we'll get it done and opened up as quick as possible so the community can use it. part of the project, we ask for, or part of the design proposals, we ask for a price for their design, also a proposed project budget, total project budget. And I asked them to take some kind of creative liberties of how they're gonna design that. And so they came back at different prices, cost. I'm expecting the total project cost between 2 and 2.5 million. And there will be a lot of, the numbers that you see here, that 3 million is what their original initial project, we had to have it start somewhere, so that was their initial project budget. We're gonna be in collaboration, it's gonna go down from there. So I expect that we'll come in around 2 to 2.5 million for the total cost of the project.
And then financially speaking, there were, I think, 4 playgrounds that were budgeted in Parks budget this year, and only 2 are moving forward. So the savings from the 2 that aren't gonna happen this year, we can use to move forward with the engineering costs. And then the actual construction would be a part of Parks' next year budget. So in terms of if there's a budget amendment, right now it's not needed, and then the rest would be part of the Parks discussion for their budget next year.
Mr. Shaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. To be clear, the finances that you're talking about, Controller Dawson, those come directly from the Parks millage in entirety, or is there a portion of those that are derived from the general fund?
Those will be entirely millage Parks dollars, and as we move into other phases of the project as well, we will be trying to leverage the millage money to get a DNR trust fund grant for the bathroom construction and some of the buildings that are in the next phase. So this is kind of the first step towards the development of the full strategic plan for this park.
Sure. Thank you for that clarification.
Mr. Roy.
Okay, thank you, Chad, for the work behind the scenes. When you mentioned beach, the swimming area, is that gonna be, I don't know, excavated so that it's shallow to deep?
Yes.
So it's safe for the little kids, right?
Yeah, so right now, we don't have that out there. Everybody kind of swims wherever they'd like. They pick a spot around the perimeter and then they go. The way that when Crandall excavated that and mined that, they had it in mind that would be the side, that would be a beach. So it is already gradually sloped for that. It'll be improved. There's a lot of vegetation that needs to be removed, and it'll look like a designed beach. That's the idea of the project. And right now, nobody uses that side because it's the farthest away from the parking area. There's vegetation growing up, so. And as we get into design, I'll be bringing you updates and showing you some of the plans, once we finalize what that looks like. And I also should mention that the total cost budget will be brought back. This is what you see we're asking for today is just for the design. So the total cost, once we have that identified and nailed down, that'll come back, and you guys will, for your approval.
Is that all sandy around there like it is at Fox Park?
Yes, I believe it is, and if not, we'll bring in sand. It's gonna be a nice beach when we get it done.
Okay, thank you.
Chad, this shows us phase 1 on this document. How far does phase 1 extend?
Oh, I don't think we have the map of the conceptual plan. It'll extend from Flanders Road, everything associated with that entrance, as far as what the requirements that for the road commission, anything traffic related. We cross, there's a county drain right there at the edge of Flanders, so anything associated with crossing that drain, and then the road back, the beach, excavation, parking area, for that, and then it will extend all the way back to the northeast, towards that back corner where eventually will be a sledding hill, But that's where the road will terminate for Phase 1. And then Phase 2, as we get into that, will be some of the building designs at the beach, a beach house and whether it's an admin administration area where we collect fees, if that ever is the case, or at some place where we can make sure everybody enters at the same spot, I guess is a better way to, and then that would, if we have rentals there, concessions, all that's yet to be determined. And then a bathroom area, obviously, we'll need that. And then some of the office buildings we're looking, or as Ben mentioned, we're looking at getting some grants to help us financially with all those. So the first phase is the road entry, everything beach related, and parking. There will be no buildings as part of the first phase.
So it's more extensive than just getting this in off the road.
Yes.
All right, excuse me, any other questions or comments?
We can add the maps to the board packet if you want. There are a lot of maps out of there. There's several maps in the Planning Commission packet from this month because they went before the Planning Commission for some new things. And on the Parks Department website, there's the strategic plan, which has maps of the area in it as well.
All right, what's our pleasure?
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further comments or questions? All right, hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, good job, Chad.
Thank you.
On to item number 8, Equalization and Property Description Director.
Yeah,
in the
so
house.
Tim will be going through our financial projections, and this is always a tough topic, right? Because property taxes go up, it's hard for residents, but it's part of the budget process that we have to go through. So we appreciate the care and Tim shows in this procedure, and so look forward to the update. Thank you.
Good morning, Tim.
Good morning. It's that time of year, taxable value report. It did have to be revised, just to let you know at the last minute, because the state has mandated now that the disabled veterans exemptions have to be subtracted from those totals, which probably should have been done in the first place, since it's not actual tax revenue that we receive. So I just want to let you know that. The increase in taxable value this year was a little bit higher than last year, so that was good news. It went up 5.43%, but if you subtract out the exemptions such as disabled veterans, it was only 4.9%. The total, if anybody's interested in the total disabled veteran exemption amount, is up to $64 million now, so that has been going up pretty fast. And then the increase in personal property did help, as we mentioned last month. We had a large increase in City Lansing for the battery plant. Breaking it down by class, we had $277,829,533 in the agricultural class. The commercial class is $871,737,396. Industrial class is $285,747,487. Residential class is $3,432,158,625. Developmental class is $5,490,221 for a total real of $4,872,963,262. And the total personal property now is up to $437,802,252. Is there any questions on that report?
I don't see any.
And you'll need both reports approved.
That's correct.
So you can either do them as a slot or a slate or just as you go.
Do we have a motion to accept this report?
Motion.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Any other discussion or questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, on to item B.
We had the 4028, which is the Headley rollback report. We were kind of lucky, actually. We came out without a Headley rollback this year for the county. We were about the only county in the area that did not have a Headley rollback. So our millage will be the same as last year, which is good news. And then that number is subtracting veterans and subtracting Renaissance zones. It doesn't say that in the report, but that is required. Just let everybody know, Delta Township did not have a Headley rollback, which is fairly typical because they get a decent amount of personal property in the area as far as new construction goes. City Lansing would not have had a Headley rollback, but they do go into the other counties obviously as well. Olivet did not have a Headley rollback. Some of the villages had quite large Headley rollbacks this year. Bellevue Village was at 0.9637, Nimondale was at 0.9899, Milliken Village was at 0.9966, Sunfield was at 0.9857, Vermontville was at 0.9890. And then we also do all the library districts. There's quite a few of those now, as you can see. Delta Library subtracts out the Renaissance Zone. We also calculate Charlotte DDA for the downtown area. And then all the school districts and the ISDs as well. Eaton Rapids did not have a Headley rollback this year for the school. Grand Ledge, because the new construction was quite high up in the Grand Ledge School District. That includes the battery plant area. And then Strange Schools did not have a Headley rollback, and Waverly did not have a Headley rollback as well. We also do the non-homestead. Is there any questions on the Headley rollback report?
I don't see any, Tim.
Make a motion to accept the Headley rollback report.
Moved and supported. Any other questions or comments? All right, seeing none. Did you want to make a comment, Ben?
I will on the next.
Okay. All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right, thank you, Tim.
Welcome.
And then before we close the item out, we tried to do these updates just so that it's good conversations for members of the public and for those that are interested in county finances. But Eaton County, as an entity of the state of Michigan, we play in the sandbox as designed by the state. And so we just like to draw attention to kind of tax infrastructure that we have to abide by. So Headley is the rollbacks that the county has had on our allocation. So we summed up the total loss on an annual basis so folks can just kind of quantify what that looks like. Veteran exemption loss, this is a great program. And quite honestly, had the board had the opportunity, very well may have adopted it for itself, but this is exactly what a textbook unfunded mandate is, because if the state sets up a framework that takes money out of your budget, but doesn't give you any incentives or any money back, say even at a 50% rate, then they're essentially making the decision how to spend the county's finances. TIFA districts also have been in place, and those are essentially the grandfathered tax increment finance districts. Most of our urban centers, their core downtown areas are TIFA districts, and what that means is county only gets tax revenue from those based on their property values from 1992. So all the growth, development, and high-rise or apartments that you see that go in some of these areas, that's not additional revenue to the county. It resides back in the TIFA district for reinvestment and economic development for that area. And then the Renaissance Zone is the newest one. This is the battery plant. So Renaissance Zone is, governors have the ability to identify areas of strategy of development they want to see come into the state. And it's the priority of whoever's governor at the time. In this case, it's renewable energy and et cetera. So the battery plant qualified for it. It's a 17-year exemption from property tax that directly impacts us and the township. We're going to just kind of track that so that people have an understanding. Even when you see a new development come in like this, if it's got a demand on utilities, if it's got a demand on public services, that doesn't always translate over to increased revenue to support that. So we total.
By the way, Ben, I just want to mention, I did check on the exemption for the battery plant, and that does expire in 2037, in case anybody's interested, because that was asked previously.
And then we break it down by a chart. So this is just meant to be more educational as we talk with residents. A lot of times you hear, well, I can't believe you guys must be making a killing on the development going on in Grand Ledge or the development going on here. So development's good, especially when it's directed by the local units and stuff, but context is the county is typically the last unit to get funding on the totem pole, so.
So Ben, back to the battery plant, for example, what do you suppose our revenue loss is to the county for this Renaissance Zone agreement?
For 2024, it was estimated at 221,000. In the current year, because they were still under construction, the current year, it's estimated at 830,000. And I imagine Tim can speak to this, but as they get fully operational, do you anticipate that that'll go up a bit, or do you think it's gonna stay around,
I would say it's probably gonna stay around there, possibly.
so 800,000 a year?
It's, the value of it is about $600 million, roughly, so it is the highest value property in the entire county right now. So it's definitely up there.
Commissioner Wright?
So, Controller Dawson, did you just say that the governor has the ability to make that a Renaissance? Oh, I guess I didn't know how it got there.
Yeah, my understanding is Renaissance zones are a mechanism where governor can outline what are priority developments they want to see. And if they build that process out, they can create Renaissance zones in areas to attract employers that match whatever the priority is.
Okay, because literally, like in the next driveway was the Delta plant, and then we have a couple other agreements for between the city and the township that gave them the 425 exemption. So I kind of, for some reason, I heard Tim say Renaissance Zone a few times, so I guess, thank you, now I understand the whole big area now.
Yeah, and I believe if an entity like City of Lansing had an income tax, the people that work at the plant would pay that income tax. That's not exempt, but counties under state law are not allowed to have an income tax. But hypothetically, if somebody was exploring how do you relieve property tax pressures off of residents, state of Georgia did a mechanism where if the county adopts an income tax and a local sales tax, they would reduce the burden of property tax on residents. So they shift the focus. Something like that would be where this Renaissance Zone wouldn't be a complete loss of revenue for the county if we were able to at least get a 1% on people working there. Yep, just an example.
Now, keep in mind, the battery plant for the building is on an IFT roll, so that is separate from what I was talking about in the 4046 report for the taxable value report, because that's ad valorem only. So that's in addition to.
All right, well, that's cheery. Go ahead,
Mr. Chair,
Commissioner Modry.
thank you. Tim, you mentioned that the disabled veteran exemption has hit $54 million.
64 million, actually.
Okay.
In taxable value.
Okay,
So
the question
that'd
is,
be like double that, basically, for true cash.
how many properties does this involve?
I'd have to check on that, but I could probably get you the number. It'd take a little bit, but it's quite a few properties to reach that amount. The legislation has changed too. Now you no longer, starting this year, have to reapply for the veterans exemptions once you receive it, and it also passes on to your spouse as well.
One thing I'd like to add, the disabled veterans, that is, your eligibility goes through the Veterans Administration.
Yeah, it's totally up to them. The local unit has no authority at all. If they give them a letter and saying they're a disabled veteran, they have to receive it.
Yep, thank you.
And to acknowledge, again, this board very well would have adopted something like that if given the opportunity. So it's nothing against veterans. My father's a retired veteran from Vietnam and fully disabled because of Agent Orange. And there are a lot of people that give a lot of their life and their bodies in defense of the country. It's really just an acknowledgement that when the state steps up with a framework like this but doesn't come back with backfilling the revenue, it really takes the decision away from you all as the local body to make that choice. So,
I just wanted to make sure that people understood the process.
yeah,
Yeah, it's not easy. Okay,
yeah, 100%.
yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Any other questions, comments? All right. Thank you, Tim.
You're welcome.
All right, on to item 9, Public and Governmental Affairs Director.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning, Logan.
Before I jump into the data analytics, I was asked this question around the security funding that we received last year. Thank you to those that could be here when Congressman Barrett did a site visit. it was interesting to see, and also big shout out to the security desk team and Director Powers for dealing with being on camera, which was very funny because he did not expect that. But at any rate, those funds have not yet been released. So we, in talking with the Bureau of Justice Assistance at the DOJ, which is where this burn discretionary grant comes from, we are still waiting on the release of funds. We monitor it every day. I did reach out to them at the beginning of this week, still have not heard any future updates, but they've generally been very communicative. So that is the only update I have for the security funding piece of this, is that work has not yet started, but Chad is geared up and ready to go once that is initiated, as well as Director Daly from IT. Yep, and then as well, our state and federal appropriations asks, there's a quick update on that. The animal control building ask and the bank intercounty drain asks, both the state and the federal level are being sponsored through subcommittee process at this point, which is great. Actually, Senator Peters' office and Congressman Barrett's office are sort of working in tandem around the bank intercounty drain funding. We applied at 2 different subcommittees to try and go at it at different angles where we thought it might qualify. And if one of those angles makes it through the process, they can both latch on to whatever that process might be. Obviously, we have months of lead time before we hear anything further from that, but at this point, the animal control building and the bank intercounty drain are the 2 appropriations asks that are moving forward at this point. Some subcommittees have not yet required any reporting on who's going to sponsor these. In the coming weeks and basically the next month and a half, we'll have a full picture. So perhaps one of our other asks might get roped into that as well, but we'll see. And in terms of the animal control building as well, that is a rural community facilities grant for a public building, basically. That is for $1.375 million of the $2.5 million cost. So working with facilities on, if we were to secure that funding, that can go towards the CIP for a new animal control building, which is a building we have to have, the board has to maintain. Any questions on that?
I don't see any.
Okay, moving on, just briefly, some of the analytics online. Traffic remains steady. You'll see a slight decrease on those accessing our site. In March, we had almost 55,000 individual users coming in and utilizing a service on the website, which is sort of fitting in that we are doing all this ADA change and updates. I've been working with several offices on reviewing traffic and stakeholder acquisition based on, calls to action on our site, whether that is signing up for a recycling event. Parks, from the Civic Rec platform that they have, we're able to sort of look at some of the data on how people are accessing and trying to get to the information, where they're falling off on trying to get through to that information. So I'm working with some department heads on figuring out how we can be better about getting people what they're looking for faster and more efficiently. I'm also working with departments on updating their sites again as part of that ADA process of coming into compliance. Many departments, I've sat down with several directors and some of their staff on what's working, what's not working, what they need help with. And this is sort of a call to action. If you haven't talked to me about your site, if you want to proactively reach out, email me. We do need to set up time with basically every office on looking at how they're falling, or if they're not in compliance. Essentially, we have to sit down and kind of walk through what that looks like, because I can bring it into compliance, but as soon as you add a new item, a new link, a new document, a new form, very quickly we fall out of it. All that to say, this board moved to get the Doc Access platform, which has been fantastic. In a minute, I'll show you what it looks like actually online. So we are in compliance now for the most part. You can see on your screen here. I know that's a bit of an obnoxious graphic, but basically they've processed every document, thousands of them, old archived ordinances, scanned documents, and folks are now able to use them. And then 5 days after that budget amendment to purchase this and install it in, the Civil Rights Division gave a 1-year extension on having 2 fall into compliance. So basically, after the weekend after we implemented it, we had an extension. But all that to say, it's still good and important that we fall into compliance and we set up the procedures and training in place for our departments and offices moving forward, so that, because we're not always going to, we might not have this platform in the future. This is a significant cost, and come September, we're going to have to reassess if we're going to utilize this platform again. And so though we are in compliance, this is really a nice cover for us, but it's not necessarily going to always be there. And so we need to do what we can to maintain that compliance again. But we did get an ADA extension for digital. I am also working with facilities on looking at the courthouse itself. It's a 50-year-old building. We are not in compliance for a lot of things, but really it's if we update signage or anything like that, we also need to fall into compliance moving forward. So a lot of ADA, but I will pull up here just so folks get an understanding of if they access any document. We'll just look at the packet today or the agenda today. It looks small on the screen because it's not a full screen right now, but basically on your right, you can see how folks can actually utilize this. They can ask the system a question if they don't understand something. You can go into an accessible mode where a screen reader can do it. There's other disability assistance and translation. It's a fantastic program. It blanketed our entire site. In onboarding and working with the team at Civic Plus around doc access too, I freaked out a little bit because we were not getting the 100% rating that I wanted like immediately. I thought it was going to be quick. They said, well, you have a lot of old documents. So I actually printed a report and gave it to the controller. It sort of said 0% compliance after I went through that whole onboarding, but eventually we got there. So this is kind of what it looks like. You'll see as you access different things on the site, it'll populate like this, basically. But that doesn't mean that any new documents and forms that departments are placing on there, whether it's an ordinance or a form to sign up for something, we should be doing everything we can to make sure we're falling into compliance with or without this system. Any questions on that?
I don't see any.
And I don't know, just in case I zoned out, but this program brought us into compliance by essentially putting a layer over our documents. What that means is if we don't have the software program, we immediately fall out of compliance. So it's not like it went through and retrofitted the PDFs to be permanently compliant. As software companies tend to do, they want an ongoing, continuing relationship with their proprietary technology. So at some point, if the decision is made to migrate from this, it becomes a question of staff or software, right? And we have a year to kind of work through that and bring a model to you all, but just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, and it's less than a year. We have till the end of September, really.
Okay.
For this, anyway. But we got the prorated. But at any rate, yeah, that's a great point. And thank you to the offices that have worked with me. If you haven't heard from me or you want assistance, please reach out. We do want to get this done as soon as possible. We basically have this summer to get it done.
Any questions for Logan on this? All right.
That actually concludes my report today.
Thank you, Logan.
Thank
This software that we have, obviously, it would be difficult to impossible to duplicate in-house, correct?
Yeah.
Eric, once upon a time, we had a coder. Problem with that is when they retire, it's tough to find somebody that can jump into all their data and make sense and keep it alive. So, but that is definitely a strategy. Some larger communities or communities pool resources together to try to build platforms. But
Yeah, and we do see there are other counties like Clinton County and a few others that are utilizing this platform too. And then again, as I've said before, there are others that are kind of flying by the seat of their pants and just hoping. So yeah, it's an interesting new frontier a little bit, but it's a good frontier to course.
Well, ironically, we should end on that note because who's at the dais other than our technical director? Good morning.
If I could just add to that last topic, I think this was a fantastic solution to put in place for the county for a compliancy standpoint. Even if you were to temporarily have a staff member come in to do this, there is no way that we would have been able to expedite getting this taken care of as soon as this software solution did. So this was a fantastic find. Kudos to Logan and the team sourcing this and putting this in place. This was a good fit for our operation. So fully support that. As far as my report today, I have no action items for you today. This will be 100% informational. The first agenda item is a BEAD update. So this is the broadband equity access and deployment. I was able to carve out some time yesterday to attend virtually the State of Michigan GIS meeting, and they had a guest speaker, Eric Frederick, who is the director of Michigan High-Speed Internet for the state of Michigan. They were able to provide, they have a website that's up now, available for the public. I apologize, I didn't have it in the packet. I literally just attended the meeting yesterday, but the URL for this map is www.michiganbroadbandmap.com. Again, www.michiganbroadbandmap.com, and we can talk after, anybody that wants that. I can provide it to you. But reviewing that application this morning, it looks like Eaton County was received generous awards for multiple service providers for Eaton County. Quickly looking at the data, there appears to be 6 providers that were granted federal dollars to provide high-speed internet for the county, in addition to what's already in service. So I was happy to see that. That means that there was going to be competition in the community, and it wasn't awarded to a single source. So I was happy to see that. But just to note, vendors that were awarded through this program were 123Net, Comcast, Strategic Management LLC, Midwest Energy Cooperative, Amazon Leo, and SpaceX. So the last two, the Amazon Leo and SpaceX, those are actually low orbit satellite solutions. So part of the new federal administration, they changed the BEAD program after it was already implemented to allow for satellite technology to be utilized for this grant. So that was able to cover a lot more of the, let's say, extreme remote areas throughout the country that would have had significant dollars to build out, physical infrastructure for fiber as what was originally proposed in the plan. So any questions about BEAD? Okay.
No, I guess not.
Security updates, just a couple things to note that we've been working on since we last presented. I presented this at our executive meeting this month, that we implemented a slightly different email filter on our county and health department mailboxes. Just for context, when we implemented this new filter, it provides us with a lot better optics for reporting in this new solution. And just in a 24-hour time frame, not even 24 hours actually, it was about an 18-hour time frame, there was approximately 6,000 emails that come into those two domains. And of those 6,000 emails, approximately 30% of those were actually spam or malicious emails. So just to put in context how much, ill will or email or phishing campaigns are hitting our staff's inboxes at any given time. So something that I, kind of implemented, not implemented, but, conveyed to staff is be patient with us. We're trying to layer down more security than maybe what we need, which is causing a slight disruption of mail flow. But I'd rather do that and have staff report that, hey, I didn't receive an actual email that I need. We can go and release those emails and get back to the inboxes where they belong. But just wanted to provide that as an update of, an application that you've funded. It is making a difference of the security of the county's operations. Another discussion that we had relating to security is we had a good discussion yesterday at the courthouse security meeting regarding wireless at the county. The county put in, I think it was 2008, adopted a policy to provide wireless internet to the public here. So we had a good discussion of where it's still appropriate to have wireless internet access for the public. How do we provide wireless internet to the public? How do we provide internet to staff and the devices that we require staff to have for two-factor authentication and things to conduct county business? So something to look forward to, maybe present in future months of maybe some changes to that policy or a direction of where we're going to provide internet access to the constituents on campuses here. And, we even have the ability to turn guest networks off in certain locations of buildings, certain time of day. So it'll be kind of an ebb and flow of where we potentially make some changes there, but just another security update for you. Any questions regarding those two topics?
Commissioner Moudry.
Yeah, I'll bring this up. You know, we monitor how many emails we come to our iPads, okay? But I have seen an uptick of emails that are sneaking through. And I may talk to you later about some of these. Maybe I'm a little sensitive about them, but I'd rather be oversensitive than just ignore them. But I'll get back with you, Eric.
Yeah,
Thank
no,
you.
that was one of the
Chair.
reasons why we've kind of migrated to this new filter and upgrade to the filter that we already have. There was no cost to the county to do this. It was something that the vendor, our current vendor, has already had in place and offered as an extra layer of security, so we took advantage of that. But yeah, that we literally did this within the last 2 weeks, so if you were seeing things before that, you know, rest assured that we're trying to tighten that up as much as possible. Other security-related thing is our cybersecurity trainings. Per the AI policy that was recently adopted by the board, we started implementing AI security trainings, targeted AI security trainings for staff here. Our first one was released at the beginning of the month. To date, I looked this morning, we're at a 33% completion rate for that. So that's okay. We still have another 2 weeks before that is actually technically due for staff to take. So we still have some room to grow there. So anybody that hasn't taken that, I highly encourage you all to partake in that. So in our normal cybersecurity trainings that we offer on a quarterly basis, we're still at a 50% completion rate for those. So we're offering those to staff, both the county staff as well as the Barre Eaton District Health Department staff to take those trainings. But as a whole, between the two organizations, we're at about a 50% completion rate for our normal cybersecurity trainings. Any questions about that?
Seeing none.
Another project that we're working on, just a place where we're at in our annual budget, is working on our mobile device management policies, getting a better inventory of the mobile devices that we have. This would fall into phones and tablets and things of that nature that exist both for normal county operations as well as public safety. We're going through the budgetary process now, assessing devices that are, you know, up for renewal, for replacement, whether they've aged out or the contract is up for renewal if it has a cellular capability to it. But we're also working with the departments to verify, is that device still needed, part of county operations? If it's determined that it is, it moves forward, and we add that part of our normal business process. If it's not, we're obviously removing that and not replacing it. Part of that now is we're moving this to actually something that we're able to leverage in our Microsoft platform of an MDM, and we're going to be able to shed a little bit of expenditure of a current solution that we're having in place now. So we'll see, you know, a few, it's probably a $6,000 expenditure that we'll be able to shed going into next year once we migrate all the devices to that. So it's being able to capture and leverage an investment that we've made in some of our recent Microsoft procurement. IT policies, working with a vendor now to basically assess, it's probably a 30 to 33 policy portfolio that we currently operate on for IT, just IT related policies. And most of these policies are required by some unfunded I would say that liabilities, if you will, that pertain to CJIS and our Pub 1075 audit for the front of the court and HIPAA. Some of the policies have been updated in the last 5 to 6 years. Some of the policies are circa 2008, like the wireless policy that I spoke about earlier. So working with a couple different vendors to procure some quotes of what it would cost to update those. It is always a finding in our audits that we have, whether it's our CJIS or our Pub 1075 audit, that those policies are a bit outdated. And honestly, some of the technology that's noted in those policies is very dated. So that is something that we did secure a little bit of funding in our budget, operating budget for this year. We're just at that place in the budget cycle to start working on that project. So look forward to some of those policies to come later this fiscal year for your approval. Any questions about that?
I I don't see any.
And then working with the Eaton Conservation District, they're moving space in the 551 building. So working with the director there of kind of giving a little bit of advice of how to move some of their technology, getting their internet service provider moved to that building. Director Powers and I had a meeting with the director earlier this week to kind of go over the game plan of the physical move and how to move their network and how we can securely coexist in those new office spaces that were previously occupied by the previous tenant. But we have a good plan in place now, and we should be able to get that secured and moved in the next 2 weeks. Parks, we've worked with them in the last month and a half of securing and configuring additional security cameras for the various parks in Eaton County. Happy to report, and I think Ethan reported this in his report last week or this week, that those are acquired. I believe they started putting up some of those cameras now. I don't know which cameras exactly they went in. They had a plan in place to put those in. I think it was just getting the physical mounts secured and in place to mount those cameras, but they were procured, configured, and delivered. The last thing I want to talk about is I kind of wanted to echo the remarks that Mr. Lloyd and Mr. Newberg spoke about early in public comment about the agenda item 15 in your packet. I am ecstatic that this is a consideration and going to review for you all. This is something that I've advocated for years now, that it is something that is desperately needed in technology service department. It is something that's desperately needed across the county. I am completely sympathetic to the budget implications that this has and the consideration of it. But it is crucial that we take a look at this at a granular approach and potentially move certain departments out of the box that we've historically been in for years. Just speaking to Technology Services Department, the wage study that was done in 2014, those technical positions were placed in your current wage scale mid to, and near the top. What that has meant for us is we've been stuck in the same spot while the rest of the world has been moving and excelling past. That's not even at a global scale, that's at a local scale within the county boundaries, where I have comparable positions that are making significant more dollars than what staff here are. I can do my best to give hugs, high fives, attaboys, attagirls, but I do need your assistance in considering a breakout scale for that group. It is super important. It is your central service department for all county operations. The track record for the department over the last 20 years shows that we were not able to retain a long time. I, as well as a very few other people, are the anomaly in that, where we have stayed. But the track record shows that the majority of the staff that are crucial to operations here, we're at training grounds. We train, we move on, they move on. So I am super ecstatic of the staff that we currently have. They are phenomenal. I hope we can do them right in allowing them to stay here. But at the end of the day, I can't fault anybody to better themselves and their families to move on. So I try to do the best I can to offer, a exceptional work environment, provide training. You do an amazing job with the budget that you have, but I would advocate and support consideration of the line item 15. Thank you.
You are. All right, moving on to item number 12. Excuse me, 11. Chad, welcome back.
Thank you. It's good to be back. So for my monthly report, I'll, as I mentioned earlier, Crandall Park Design has been hot on the forefront of a lot of the stuff I've been working on. As Logan mentioned, the courthouse security upgrades that we received are in the process of receiving grant funding for. It's high on the priority list, as well as our elevator replacements, which begin with consulting for design next week. And then I'll bring more updates as we roll that out. We're doing a somewhat minor office renovation in the controller's office. If they have acquired more staff, we need offices to place these folks. And I think currently we're doubled up in a couple of them as we complete some of these renovations. Those will be wrapping up. We're gonna do a minor renovation in the treasurer's office. As you know, they moved, switched offices with the clerk last year, the county clerk. They've lived there for a year or so, just less than a year. I think we did it in June last year. So they've lived in the space, and we need to make some modifications to their front desk to make it more efficient for them. All of this stuff was budgeted, so it's kind of an internal maintenance stuff that we do. But kind of knew that was coming. I always like when people move is, live with it for a while, see how it works before. A lot of times people move in and are like, oh, we need this. Let's work with it for a while and see. And then, but they've done that, so we're going to be completing that for them. As Director Daly mentioned, working with the Conservation District on space and lease management over at 551 building. They are finishing up their technology needs, and they'll be moving in there shortly. Also, and Claudine maybe help me with this, but we were approached for joint planning and zoning commission request for some office space, so.
Yeah, so if you remember right, some of the townships are moving forward with a joint planning commission. And they had approached us and asked us if we had any office space here within the county complex. We suggested the 551 building. So I gave them a quote similar to what we did for the Conservation District, the $17.85 per square foot for 150 square foot office, and then some common area. So it came in at roughly just under $5,000. So I gave that to them. They were going to discuss it, and we haven't heard back from them yet.
And then along the same lines, a meeting tomorrow with Bill Hedrian from MSU Extension, and he had expressed they've through the budget reductions pretty much dissolved their presence here in Eaton County. They have majority of their stuff has moved out. They're waiting on MSU surplus for some other stuff, but he expressed that they may be interested in leasing an office from us, so I'll find out more about that. Just one space where, from my understanding, is he manages several extensions across the region, and it would give him a space to touch down here if needed in the counties in that space. So. Capital improvement plan, we'll talk more about that here coming up later in the agenda. Working on that. And we had a good session last week with the purchasing committee on that policy and updating the purchasing policy. And that's all I have. There's one thing I wanted to add about projects and sourcing, and I think Ben will talk more about this in another, later on in the agenda, but whenever there's a project, the controller's office, for example, there's a renovation there that we're doing. I reached out to a contractor, I got a proposed budget, brought it to you, approved to move forward. But then I look internally and, hey, challenge my maintenance team, can we do this internally? Do we have the capacity, the time to get it done in a timely manner? If it doesn't require licensed, plumbing or electrical, can we do this? And that's how I approach all of our projects. So, and in this case, we're gonna, we were able to do, I think the original construction budget that was approved for the controller's office was around $30,000, $25,000, $30,000. We were able to do that internally for, maintenance staff time and materials. So we're gonna save significantly on that. And that's how, I just wanted to kind of give you guys how I approach projects. It may look like a lot on the front end for the ask, but then, if we can save money, I think that's, I would be not doing my job if I wasn't, doing as much as we can internally. So, I just wanted to make that point, and I think we'll talk more about that here later in the meeting as well. But that's all I had this month, and I'm open to any questions.
Commissioner Barber.
Thank you, Chad. I appreciate your report. I gotta ask, what's the status of my favorite garage door?
If you want, we will cover it under miscellaneous, because I also have an update on that vehicle in general, if you're good with waiting.
How's the status of my garage door, Chad?
The engineering's done, the structural steel's done, the modifications to the door are complete. I'm just waiting on the overhead door portion. So it was expected to be here earlier this week. That didn't happen. So I expect by the end of next week, it'll be completed. And there'll be some cost savings on that as well, which we'll address.
So it's gonna be under the
Yes.
original amount, and then you came back and I believe it was 10,000 or 12,000, I think, and it's gonna be less than that now?
It will be, I think the original amount was 25,000, but it will be less than that. I haven't did the final numbers. And that's an example too of a project that I reached out to contractors, challenged my staff if we could do it internally. I had a lump sum bid from a contractor to do the total project. Well, what I did was, instead of paying them their markup and to manage the project, I did that, and it saved several $1,000s. So
Okay, so the garage door isn't done
it's not done today. It will be done next week.
next week?
Yep.
All right, so next month.
For sure, next month when I report. I'll bring you pictures.
Any other questions for Chad? And you'll be back in a little bit again?
If needed, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
All right, thank you.
Oh, actually, I will be because the capital improvement, I think. So.
Third time's the charm.
You'll get your fill of me this morning.
All right, on to item 12, Administrator, Human Resources Director. Ben?
Hey, everybody. Speaking of, we actually have a new addition to our team. We've hired our HR administrator, and she has hit the ground running. Susan's over there in the back, if you want to stand up and wave at everybody. That's Susan. She's already done a lot to relieve personnel and HR work off of my plate, which is important. And we're doing an internal review of our procedures because at some level, I think our office was structured around the deputy and the controller doing just about everything or touching every piece. But an organization our size, we should allocate our time in a way to where we're using our resources best. And so my ability to go to all these town hall meetings in the evening and having the headspace to have these discussions and chart our path forward is in no small part the capacity you all provided by approving that position. So thank you. For the positions update, we filled 13 positions this month, had 6 separation retirements. Currently, we have 16 positions posted on the county website. 9 of those are related to ongoing openings between the Parks Department, Sheriff's Office, and Youth Facility. Parks is almost fully staffed, I think, for their seasonal, but if anybody knows someone that's looking for summer work that doesn't mind getting dirty, if they apply, they might still be in consideration for seasonal work there. There are no position authorizations this month, so there's no action needed. I do want to report this is the lowest unfilled position ratio that we've had since I've been here. So at the current month, we're 7.97% unfilled positions. The 12-month average was 12%, and our 6-month average is 9.55. It's no small part because of one, we had to make some budgetary changes last year, but honestly, we also have tried to tackle our compensation structure, and we continue that work, which we'll talk about a little bit later. And then the dedication of staff like Chris Coleman at the Sheriff's Department, just going with tenacity at trying to get staff up. And especially with the Sheriff's Office, a lot of that we're doing through Academy sponsorships. So We'll be meeting next week to have that discussion. They've got 4 people that they'd like to sponsor. And part of this is mapping, what does this look like for us now? Over the last 3 years, we've had so many vacancies in the sheriff's department, we never had to wonder, do we have enough FTEs? We just got as many into the academy as we can. And so really having to have that discussion of how many spots are open, where are they getting billed, and making sure that we maintain this in the budget. It's a good problem to have, but again, no small part the dedicated work that you see from our team. So, and the other piece is we really want to get our sponsorships early. The state has that grant program through MSP or through MCOLS where they'll reimburse for a portion of the academy expenses. However, that's a first come, first served grant, and last legislative cycle, I think I reported on this, but they did cut the amount of money that's there. So everybody's competing for the same pot, and when it's empty, it's empty. So it's in our interest to line up our sponsorships timely so that we can still get that reimbursement.
All right, any questions for Ben? Okay, thank you, Ben. Moving on to item B.
This is the restructure proposal for central dispatch and emergency management. I spoke about this last Ways and Means, and then there was discussion at the prior Public Works. This administrative recommendation coming from my office and myself, just looking at how we were structured for financial work and administrative work, housing of the operation, and the synergy that I believe exists between emergency management and central dispatch. I requested this, you authorized me to send it for evaluation, which it has. Consultant came back. There are no pay changes recommended for the emergency service personnel. Nobody's getting a pay cut. The 911 director and deputy director, in consideration for the division add, would get a 1 grade bump. If we do this change, this would be moving the department over to the 911 millage, which would be $102,000 general fund savings. Melissa has the particulars of those 2 financial changes for the positions, what that would equate to for cost of the millage.
The total cost of the change for the 2 employees that would be changing their pay rates is approximately $13,000 this year. I do not have the projection for next year, so I apologize, but that those changes are the 1 grade increase as well as all of the fringes, so it's not a substantial dollar amount. We are recognizing that there's been some unfilled positions within the dispatch department, so there would not necessarily be a budget amendment needed for this.
All right, Commissioner Wright, you had a question?
Yeah, are these positions that we're moving on to the 911, is that the 911 that we're gonna be voting on in November as well?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. And I would say I did some homework because it was asked, well, what do other counties do? What does it look like? So I did reach out on a MAC channel where I can communicate with other controllers' offices about who reports to who with regard to their emergency management operations. The county administrators that reached back, I got 20 responses. 2.5 of them have it through the sheriff's office, 2 through dispatch, and then controller's offices was 17.5. So about 88% through the controller's office and about 11%. The 2.5 is there's like an intergovernmental agreement between a sheriff and a controller for one of the northern counties, I believe. So that's how that one is structured.
I was curious how you got half.
Yeah, it's a good question, yeah.
That's a maybe, maybe not day, apparently.
Yeah.
All righty, any questions for Ben on that, or Melissa? All right, seeing none.
I got a question. I'm sorry, Mr.
Commissioner
Chair, I'm
Shaver.
a little slow today. So what's your recommendation? What are you asking for?
My recommendation would be to move the restructure and request forward to the full board for implementation.
So moved.
Support.
Okay, moved and supported. Any other discussion, any comments? All right, seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Thank you, that's been passed. Anything else, Ben?
No, you will hear from me later, but.
Oh, I'm certainly
we'll
will.
finish there.
Okay, on to item 13, Finance Director, Melissa.
Good morning again. So before you, I have a couple of reports. I have the health insurance report as well as our monthly financial report. And I am pleased to say that neither of them have changed substantially from last month's reports. That means that we're steady as we go. That is exactly what we want to see at this time of year. I don't have any anomalies to report, but I will say I'm very happy to report that my department is currently fully staffed. So very excited that we have all of my employees onboarded right now. We are still doing in-depth training and going through that. However, that is going to be a long-term process, so.
Any questions for Melissa?
I do.
Commissioner
On the health insurance, are they starting to look at next year for us to expect increases or whatever?
So for health insurance, yes, we are looking at what is going to happen for next year. Right now, we don't have any firm information. I know that there's been a lot of speculation, but we're also exploring many options, including the possibility of another plan. But that is within something that is discussions with Controller Dawson and I, so.
Because don't we usually get the knowledge of the cost by August?
The final cost should be July or August, yes. That's when we will find out exactly how much it is. But for right now, for the budgetary purposes, we have budgeted for an increase for 2027.
We've started talking at some of my other locations, you know, as far as how to tweak it, and what we might be expecting, you know, just like co-pays, deductibles, you know.
Yes, and that is something that has to be done through union negotiations as well, so that makes it a
yeah.
little bit more complicated. So
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Any questions for Melissa?
I would just report there is kind of a negotiation showdown going on between Blue Cross Blue Shield and their commercial networks, and the Southeast Michigan Hospitals, which is the U of M network. So it's largely located, the southern ones, but those are specialty services. So some folks go there for like cancer treatments or like kind of high-end things like that. So we're monitoring it closely. As of now, their agreement will expire July 1st, and I think you'll probably see more of this play out where insurance carriers are trying to get strong-armed by hospital networks as they prepare for reductions in federal funding that are coming in the future. So we've communicated that this is going on with our union groups and our employee groups, and we're continuing to monitor it and hope that cooler heads will prevail. Otherwise, we've got to help people understand what it means if they stay with that provider with their medical benefits.
Thank you for that update.
Yeah.
Anything else, Melissa?
No, sir.
All right, thank you much. Moving on to item 14. Before we get that far, we've been here for an hour and a half. Does anyone need to take a break? All right, let's have a 15-minute recess, and we'll resume at 10:45. All right, thank you, everyone. We're back to our meeting. We are on to item 15, policy update. I believe, Ben, you're going to take this over?
Yes, although I think 14, do we not have any budget amendments?
No, we do not.
Perfect. Let me sign in real quick. All right. So policy updates, I have a work group update for the purchasing group, but I'll cover that after the fund balance policy on the agenda. So before you is a resolution and then a fund balance policy. Prior year was the first year that we adopted targets in our budgeting process. This is a mechanism that a lot of communities utilize. The state utilizes it in their budget process. We did a 10% minimum fund balance based on the prior year expenses. And then the mechanism for doing this is so members of the public feedback we got when we went through our difficult budget last year was, we had no idea this was going on. You know, if the county had been entering dire straits for 5-6 years, why didn't anybody know? This fund balance policy is meant to alleviate that from happening in the future. The 10% target of the minimum means that if a board adopts a budget that dips below that 10% threshold, that's when we communicate to the public through the county journal and to our townships, letting them know where we're at. And the board has to adopt a mechanism to get back above 10% in the next 3 years. So essentially creates that mechanism of communication to locals and residents. All right, if you can move to the actual fund balance policy. So we did a draft of this last year and then just adopted the targets. We built this out this year with additional information, kind of demonstrating through examples how we calculate what is the percentage of the unassigned fund balance. Each year through the audit process, at the close of our books in the audit, we know what our unassigned fund balance is. Unassigned means not money in the computer fund or in the capital improvement fund. It's truly fund balance carryover that hasn't been assigned for a purpose yet. You guys approved last month doing an additional 5% consideration. So we built that in structurally so that it's part of your budgeting process going forward. And that means if commissioners through the budget process decide they want to allocate that additional 5%, they can, or you can retain it as part of the fund balance or utilize it through some of the mechanisms that are covered below. This section here for funding above 15%. This is a list of administrative recommendations for the board to consider for this year and then also for future years. If we want to add something, like I know I had a discussion with Commissioner Barber about doing fee schedule updates all at once, right? So that'd probably be a good bullet to add here. So kind of like the comp study at the bottom, once every 10 years, anything over 15% could be used for a countywide fee schedule. That's something that I could see added here. We include a capital improvement program. So if we know we have large capital expenditures coming up and we have unassigned above the 15, money can go there. For MERS, our unfunded liability, money can go there. Same with the retirees' health. Two items that are newer, but we've been having discussions. We talked about the missing middle at Public Works and Human Services. This local tax defense fund is a theory and concept that we've done on a case-by-case basis. But the reason I'm recommending that we put this forward is when you come out of a financial crisis, there's really two mechanisms to move forward. One is through managing your expenses, and the other is through having a growth plan for revenue in a positive way. The local tax defense fund, since I've been here, we've done this twice, but it's usually a township comes to us and asks, and then on an individual basis, you all have appropriated money. We did it for Sunfield Township my first year. We did it for Windsor, I think, the following year. And what that is commercial or industrial properties in a jurisdiction may apply for challenging their tax rolls through the tax tribunal. And when that happens, the township can either, one, not fight it, or two, fight it, and those can sometimes be costly and take years. Delta Township is in the midst of one with Walmart that's going to be going to appeal, and I think they've already spent over $100,000 in defense of it. So the idea being, we established this fund because when locals go to defend their tax base, it's also our tax base. And every time a commercial property steps away from their obligation, that transfers more of the services and public services and utility services over to homeowners and residents, because those dollars have to get made up somewhere, right? So this would just be establishing so the locals know, if you have an opportunity to defend your tax base, Eaton County is in it, up to 10 grand per 50,000 with no more than 30,000 on a $150,000 case. So it's tiered up to the 3. I think if this was something where we expended all of the money in 1 year and somebody still came to us, we'd bring that to the board to consider on a case-by-case basis. But this is mostly just making our townships and our communities aware that they have the backing of the county as they defend their taxes. The Missing Middle Housing Program, we talked a lot at Public Works and Human Services. Similar is, if we're able to come up with an incentive program to encourage development for residential properties in Eaton County, that helps grow the tax base. It also adds stock to our community. And property tax increases every year are driven by what is the market price of homes, right? And so in a supply and demand market, when there's not enough supply and demand is high, prices rise. And when prices rise, property taxes rise. So honestly, if you got to the point where you had a better amount of housing stock, property tax increases would be reducing over time if you were able to take a bite out of that problem. Not just an Eaton County problem, that is a Michigan and a US problem. And we're proposing $200,000 so we can come up with a pilot program. Both the local tax defense fund and the Missing Middle housing program are things that would not expend any money until a policy was developed. So for the Missing Middle, that'd come out of Public Works and Human Services. The local tax defense fund would come out of Ways and Means. This would just set the money aside so staff knows, let's start the development of these policies and frameworks. And this would be a 1-year process. If it's successful, you all have the consideration to look at it in future years. And then the last item is for compensatory salary study and implementation. We've had a lot of discussions about this at length, but the last time we did our salary study, as Prosecutor Lloyd had said, was in 2014. Salary studies essentially go through and analyze what your pay is compared to comparable communities. The last time we did it, we focused heavily on comparables being population and SEV, so you get a sense that they're comps for tax base as well, right? But because of where we're located, we have regional competitors as well. So while Ingham is not a good population or tax, they are a competitor in terms of stealing talent or getting talent. So I'm proposing that we set aside a sum of money to make a salary study possible, and including an amount to help it be implemented in year 1. But if we don't have the funds to do it all at once, then we would have a staggered approach where we do it either over a 2 or 3 year period. We'd have to structure it so that we can do it within the framework of us having a fiscal recovery as well. So then if you pop back up, okay, sorry, I'm still in the policy. So for Section D, if we establish these uses, it would just take a 2/3 majority to do an override on them after it's already been adopted, and that way we would just know, like if we put the money for the tax defense fund, that we don't take it out unless it's unanimous, like we really need to get this money back for something else. This plus the 5% that's held for budgetary considerations, we think is a mechanism that allows you all to make decisions based on circumstances that might be happening, like a significant downturn in the market, right? Yeah, I welcome questions on the policy. When we get to the budget discussions, the budget is presentation doesn't have all of the budget amendments that we've done to date. They're only through February. Given that, I'm going to recommend that we hold this policy just for 1 month for one, there's a lot of stuff in here for you all to look at. I think the discussion at Public Works and Human Services is a good example. And then the other piece is we just want to adopt it after we have fully updated budget figures, so that way if there has to be a discussion about how funding is prioritized between these things, we can have them. But as it's written today, my proposed recommendation is, let me pull it up, or actually, Logan, can you just scroll to the resolution that has the dollar amounts? Thank you. So it'd be $1 million to MERS for the unfunded liability. We would propose doing that across multiple pension groups, not just one individual pension group, so that we're spreading that benefit of the pay down on the unfunded liability for future years. $127,000 for retirees' health, $100,000 for the local property tax defense fund, $200,000 for the housing development fund, and $1.5 million for the salary study implementation. And then that also, these amounts take into consideration the budget amendments we've had to date, even though right now they're not integrated in the budget file that we're going to go through when we get to that part of the packet. And the last thing I'd note with the missing middle housing, $200,000 allows us to build a program. We've asked for state and federal money for this. We may not get it, but I think if we establish a framework that works for Eaton County, that will bolster our request in future funding cycles. And then also working with Brandy Miller and Claudine Williams, we can see if there are programs through HUD or through MISTA that might be able to make funds that are allocated through the federal and state process because they see what we're building here. Kalamazoo used an American Rescue Plan Act's money to do some creative housing related stuff. So I'm gonna speak to their controller, got copies of their materials and just explore how they did it from a county perspective. But yeah, that's a lot. So I welcome questions.
So,
You're right.
so Ben, with the 200,000 that we set aside, this resolution just makes it so that it's over here to work with. And then because of it, Public Works and Planning, we had several different aspects when it was presented. So we can work with the policy itself of who and what gets allocated, right?
Absolutely.
And be involved.
Yeah, we added, because of the discussion, the last whereas, that anything approved for those two items would require board approval and board adopting a policy before expenditure of funds.
Okay, thank
Just
you.
set it aside for you all to then build the policy.
Any other questions? Ben, on the $1,500,000 for the compensatory salary study and implementation, what do you think the time frame is going to be on that?
If it's approved, we move forward going out for an RFP. I would wager probably 6 to 7 months to lock in a vendor. We're going to approach the union groups as well because we want to do all. And then that will require effects bargaining because, right, we'll have our comparables and they may want different comparables. So I want the county study to be uniform across the board, but that will require discussions with the union groups as well. So if it's approved, hopefully we can have a vendor lined up within 6 months and be pretty far along with all the discussions with the groups we need. I'll note that right now all of our non-union are on one scale. I can tell you off the top of my head, attorneys need to come off the scale and have their own scale. It's a very niche specific level of requirements and the retention needs there are very different. Another group would be IT and technology services for similar reasons, but having them off on their own scale will make it easier to kind of manage recruitment and retention in those groups. And then this will also help us allocate our resources where they're needed most, right? So the youth facility, which has 9 vacancies that currently have that whole wing that we got through a grant currently closed because we can't staff it. That'd be an example of a group where you're like, obviously we're not where we need to be because we can't even staff at the minimum level to be fully operational. So the 1.5 will hopefully get us to a place where we can map out where those dollars need to be used most.
And the hope is we don't spend that much on that study, or you're pretty certain it'll come close to that?
That's my hope. That's my hope, yeah. And the last time we did this was just for the non-union group. The money wasn't set aside like this, and so year one implementation was out of the question. So it was a multi-year rollout, but when they did the rollout, I think I had talked about people, if they were at the top of their scale previously, didn't go to the top of the new scale, they went to their, allotted steps. So you went from like, say, 7 to a 5, and then you had 1-year progressions to get back to the top. And then also at the time, for fiscal reasons, COLAs weren't included. So even by the time you got to full implementation of the scale, there'd already been a reduction of purchasing power. Putting this money aside makes it more likely for a year one implementation. But even if we have to do it over multiple years, which we can, I would propose working with our contractor, doing like where we establish the COLA first, and then if we have funds left over, then you do a catch-up. So that way we're still carrying forward without losing the position we currently hold.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Barber?
Yes, I'm not in support of this, and I'll tell you a reason why. Wednesday's discussion, I'm sort of blown away per Wednesday's discussion on this missing middle housing program. All that discussion we had, and then you turn around, and it was unanimous, I thought. I mean, we didn't vote on it, it was informational, and I defended that informational portion quite a few times against a commissioner that kept on saying that the way you pitched this program was going to benefit contractors and not homeowners. And I defended you saying this was just an informational brief. And then here you are slipping it in here, which I'm very disappointed. But hey, what else should I expect? And then I go down here and the conversation I had with you about the salary schedule, right? You sort of gloss over it because you're putting implementation in there. That means giving the raises out. I wanted to hire a consultant, an outside consultant, to come into this county, do everybody's job title, schedule, their pay fees, all our schedule, our clerks' fees, anything that we take in there, so we can go back and and do efficiency study across the whole county to ensure that we don't have overlap in jobs or that we have gaps to where we might have to create a new job to fill that gap. So we can show the public that, hey, we did the budget cuts last year. We have the money this year. This year, we're going to dig down and make sure that we're the leanest as possible to function and provide you with the services that you need. And then next year, maybe look at, doing this out. But I'm all for the tax defense, putting it on MERS. I'm all for that. But I cannot believe that you just slipped it right back in after I felt Public Works said you need to go back to the drawing table on that middle housing, but I'm not supporting it.
Commissioner Wright?
Well, I had another comment, but I'll start with the one to Commissioner Barber's concern. That's why I asked about, this is a placeholder for the 200,000. This is not spending it right now. Until we get a policy developed that we can agree on because of some of the concerns that were brought up during Public Works and Planning. So this is only a placeholder. So if we don't have a policy that's workable, then it will not go forward. But right now, if we just leave it there as a placeholder and a point to work from, we're still doing well by our public to try to create a situation where we can get some housing that's needed. I know yesterday, Commissioner Mulder that was good, Mark. We were driving around Delta, and we have expansions going on with bulldozers and fields and stuff, and I stopped at one of the places, and it's a huge expansion to a company, and I said, these are gonna be developed, but these are gonna need people to live here, and so we're gonna need some type of housing to put them in. And this is what I'm trying to keep saying, that the employers want something that's, they can put employees in, that they don't have to pay them $50 an hour. So it's just really hard to increase our industrial and commercial bases when we don't have the right housing stock for the workers that we actually need to entice to come here. So we're going to have to work with some, but we have to develop a policy that we all agree on what type of the companies, developers, that we want to give the incentive to. So, and we will have a process. We're going to agree, you guys, I'm sure, because I've been on this project since I was in Delta in the 90s, because we really have to start dealing with housing. It interferes with everything. Okay, so that's my speech on that. But I did want to ask, when we do this wage study, both of you, I'm assuming that it's going to be similar, because I haven't been around when you did a wage study for any conversation. Okay, I wasn't here in 2014. So you did a good job last year, Controller Dawson, about looking at the board situation and comparing us with 16 counties, okay? Now, 2 counties are paid less than us, but when I look closely at the spreadsheet, they also include healthcare. Okay, so even though they're paid $200 less a year, once you throw in a healthcare policy, that changes the whole thing. Okay, so same thing when it's the counties, because we've tried this through MAC to compare county to county, size to size, all this kind of stuff. We've tried it a couple of different times, and counties are all over the board, just like what Commissioner Dawson found last year. So I'm real concerned as to, you know, we got $1.5 million here going out for wage studies to make sure that they're apples and apples, not apples and oranges when you come back and talk to me, because I did make a note when Prosecutor Lloyd was talking under the next item, that we do have to look at county revenues total, and also population, because we really cannot compete with Ingham. So even though our people go there, I understand that, but to think we're going to come up, you know, maybe we can shorten it, not 2025K like was brought up, but I don't know how with our budget that all of our employees could be Ingham type. I'm just saying.
Yeah, if I can. Certainly. So for comps, so the last time we did it was by population and SEV. And I think Clinton was part of the comps and Barry as well, right? Okay. I think the regional piece, so if you're choosing comparables that don't match with population and SEV, and this would be how I would have the discussions with the contractor, would be doing like a weighted average. So maybe you include competitive communities, but they're not at 100%, right? Because say 80% is by SEV and population, and then the 20% is by non-comps that are competitors, like Ingham or Jackson, or, right, depending on where they land for population and SEV purposes. The other thing I didn't mention, but I think we do need to do that for our elected officials as well to be a part of the process. Currently, our electeds are on the scale with non-union staff, and a lot of counties actually have them on their own, so that it's very clear what the compensation is for elected officials, independent from the non-union group. I do want to say, Commissioner Barber, the reason I included that last whereas was exactly because of what you said at the meeting. So this is just saying we set the money aside, but we still have to hash out what a program looks like. And if Public Works and Human Services that you chair doesn't pass a recommendation to Ways and Means, the money sits there. And then you guys could decide to put it to MERS, or it just sits there earning interest under the care of the treasurer, and is back into budget discussions next year. So these are fully contingent on the policy committees developing a framework. And there are a lot of things, right? Priority of whether the aid goes directly to homeowners, if it goes to contractors, whether it goes for multifamily or single residential. So those things have to get worked out before ever a penny's spent. At this point of the budget, though, I think we just have to allocate the unassigned so we move forward, so we know very clearly what our starting balance is. And that's why I proposed it. So this was not an attempt at trying to circumvent the authority of your committee. I apologize if that's how it was taken. Commissioner Shaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I think I just want to highlight something that Commissioner Barber was referencing. I think this board, and not necessarily in an unhealthy way, has an appetite to hire outside experts to take a look at things that we do. I think these studies are important, but I think the comprehensive nature of what Commissioner Barber was proposing or addressing with also looks across the board at gaps and efficiency and how we can do that. I believe that that's why we were elected. I believe this board exists to make the county financially stable. I know that the cuts that were made by some 8.4 million from my memory last year, I wasn't on the board, but I was here in the audience. I think that those were a beginning. I do think that, future forward, we need to responsibly look at how we could incentivize growth in the county. It's my opinion that that this could be a good idea, like with the middle housing. I was a little bit surprised that we were looking at that on Wednesday, at full disclosure. I think that that's something that we need to be looking at in a different fiscal year than this year. That's my opinion. I think that we need to be concentrating on things that really are going to move the needle for the pain that the county's feeling right now. I can't speak for the whole county, but I know that whenever we would project out 5 years from now, 8 years from now, I don't care. It's kind of pin the tail on the donkey with some of this stuff, and I won't hold that tail. I'll let somebody else do that. But at some point, we want to achieve a restoration of certain critical services like road patrol, not just that, but like road patrol. And we have people that already own houses in the county that really want those services. I think we need to look critically at that. I'm going to promote an adjustment to how much we would put into MERS, because I think that's the millstone around the neck of the county right now. And I think also we should look at having a more comprehensive study in relationship to what Commissioner Barber's recommendation was, where we look for gaps as well as efficiency, because we're in a calendar year right now where we want our public to trust us, and they well should trust us. And I'm going to continue to do the work, as well as others, to make sure that they will trust us. We've got very important millages that are coming up, and I want to make only moves that are going to, because I understand to the controller's point that this is just setting this money aside. It's my opinion that we don't even want to earmark it at this point. I want to see us to stay as austere as possible and as focused as possible on continuing to right the ship and focus forward on restoration of services. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Commissioner Barber.
I just add one more thing. I would just like to remind all the commissioners, all the public, everybody sitting out here, that our MERS is at 58.2%. Right? That's where it's at. Until we get the report in June, that's where we're at, 58.2%. That's pretty low.
Thank you. Anyone else? Commissioner Moudry?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Okay, Ben, on this resolution, how much is it going to cost us tomorrow if we approve this?
The total for this is 3.6 million, and that takes into account carryover fund balance use through budget amendments to date. So it's the amount over the 15% target that was established last month.
To your point, I believe these funds are allocated, but not necessarily spent. Is that what you were?
So we're just doing a policy. We're
setting
defining a
aside,
policy.
we're defining the policy, and
We're
we're
not
setting
spending money.
aside the money for
Setting aside
spending
money
it later.
To define a policy on these two items. And I would just say, so you know, when I come and bring stuff like this, I don't bring it as like, this is what we're pushing. This is me just trying to put forward a vision. The idea with the housing is as you add stock, bring prices down, and then have your tax base increase, that's a long-term revenue strategy to where $200,000 today could equal funding in perpetuity, assuming the homes aren't subject to some kind of disaster, right? So it's just adding another strategy for trying to chart a path forward. I totally understand, and I've been preaching the MERS obligation for the whole time I've been here. In fact, the first time I got here and I started looking around and started understanding where we were at and understanding the history of we used to have a higher multiplier, we had to bargain it down. Those were tough years for our employees too. I understood that really that is the path forward. So I'm not indifferent to any of the discussions. In fact, I think when I started, I encouraged, if we want to add a bullet, like add a bullet for a fee schedule study, right? So like the wage study, it's there once every 10 years. You could do that for the fee schedule once every 5 years. You could add one for workflow efficiency studies. This is mostly just saying these are things that, one, can help us chart a path forward, and then two, what are ongoing expenses that it'd be good to do, but the county just never ponied up the money to do it. So then that way, each cycle, you have a list of like, hey, it's been a while since we did a fee study. Let's go ahead and do that this year. Or it's been a while since we did a wage study. We have a balance over 15%. Let's do it this year. I don't know if that makes sense, but I just wanted to share that. And again, I'm not asking for this to move today because I'm not comfortable with the budget not being fully up to date as of today. I want this discussion. I want this feedback. Let's build the path forward because you guys are accountable to the voters. I'm accountable to you. And ultimately, I want the success for Eaton County. I want to have 3 years into this crisis, revenue projections that say, should we start planning to bring road patrol back in 2 years? That's my vantage point, if it's possible. But it has to be done responsible because you can't add a service, remove a service, especially one as complex as law enforcement. So anyway, I just wanted to share that. So.
Okay, Commissioner Wright.
So let me be clear. What is being proposed here is over, we already have the 15% that we increased it from 10 to 15, okay? So this is the money that would be over and above the 15%.
Correct.
Correct, okay.
It's 4 million.
I just wanted to make sure I was,
And I should have included the table, I apologize. So 10% of current year expenses is 4 million, that's a lock. 5% consideration was set aside, that's 2 million, that's a lock for you all to use during the budget process. Over and above the 15% was 3.6. This is an administrative recommendation only for that portion.
okay.
Commissioner Shaver.
I'm not entirely allergic to the vision that you're sharing, but and I understand my counterpart's idea that this is just no money's being spent. But what is happening when, in a public meeting like this, when it's presented, is there's signals that happen, right? We're signaling to the public, these are things that we feel might be a good option for us. And I don't think that any responsible commissioner or commission is going to say, we don't want, economic improvement and potentially offer incentives. But I think in the midst of the pain that this county is still in from the cuts last year, I think it's most appropriate to stay lean, mean, narrow with this. We want to be responsible first to our public, and secondly to the employees that are here. And I think this needs to be not because it's necessarily bad ideas, but because it's a signal. I think this needs to be much more narrow in the sense where it does, own up to those first two priorities and really nothing else. And so I appreciate the creativity, and I like the thought process, and I enjoyed the robust conversation that we had on Wednesday, and I think that there's good ideas potentially future forward, but this isn't just, this isn't, I'm not saying that this is encumbering these dollars, but it's signaling to the public. And it's also signaling to others, like, these are things that the board is saying is priority. And I'm saying at that point today, this does not have my support. Thank you.
Any other comments? Okay, so this is an up or down vote. So if we vote for this, this would move it on to the full board.
Yeah, I'm not asked, again, when we get to the budget update, I'm not asked, I just wanted to have the discussion, and I'll take the feedback, and, next month I can bring, so yeah, I mean, we can take the housing out and increase 1.2 million to MERS. I'd like to leave it in as a potential use in the policy, just so we can revisit it, but we can also override the policy and add it next year at a 2/3 majority if we have a policy framework that everybody likes. It gives us a year to develop it. I'm not indifferent to that at all. I just as we move forward over the next 5 years, what we did to get here will not get us where we want to go. And so I appreciate everybody's feedback, so thank you. This is why we do this.
So we don't need to take action on this.
No, this is literally so that we can have these discussions, and yeah.
All right.
Mr. Chair, I do want to ask a question about the Delta Patrol contract. Okay, if we're looking at $1 million here to just set aside over the 15%, is not the Delta contract including some additional funding to go towards the mayor's liability next year?
So the way we structured that contract in the Windsor was there was an upfront cash injection required as part of the agreement that was matched 50% by the county. Those were one-time allocations. And so for Delta, it was 2 million, we did $1 million. For Windsor, I believe it was 66,000, and then county's contribution gets it to about 100,000. What we did do is dedicate 1/3 of our admin revenue on an ongoing basis. So for the Delta contract, it's about 386,000 a year, and that has to be above our required contributions. We're not saying, oh yay, we're gonna use that for what we're required to do. That is over and above. This $1 million would largely apply to our most unfunded groups, but I've reached out to MERS to ask them, because we did an amortization extension on all but 2 union groups. So I want to know, if we were to do one time 200,000 in the central dispatch supervisor group, could we then add 5 years to their table? So all of our pensions have the same final funding date. But the intention is make it easier to do business with the county. So these investment dollars bring down our personnel costs, which make partners like Windsor and Delta pay less. Also makes it easier for other communities to consider contracting with us and may be making a road forward for bringing back services.
Because there was an idea that with contracting with Delta, that was going to also help our liability, remember?
Yeah,
So,
Well, because we put 3 million up front, which is a significant investment into the unfunded liability. And it made possible to do that 5-year extension. that we
yeah,
talked
okay,
about.
so then okay.
Yep.
Okay, because we are working on it. It's not like we don't have a plan in place
Yeah.
last year.
And to, Commissioner Barber's point, we don't know the fruit of that labor until we get the report in June. So we are 58.2% today. And we had to request a waiver from the state of Michigan because we went under 60%.
Yep.
I want to see how far the needle moved, and that will also help you all with charting a path, getting a sense of what does $1 million to MERS do in terms of an impact on future rates.
Okay, thank you.
Commissioner Shaver.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So just in reference to the MERS, I know we're not going to know anything until June, but are we going to be able to predict off of that? I understand MERS kind of holds a moving target for us because of several factors, but are we going to have somewhat predictable effect per 100,000 or million or whatever benchmarks are set that we put in, that we hopefully expect to move the needle a certain percentage? Because I think generally people are excited that we're throwing millions of dollars at this, but we don't see the needle moving yet. Hopefully next month, I'm expecting to see that needle move, but will that be a respectable increment for each 3 million, let's say, that we put at it? Is that, you're
No, I
more of an
totally get what
expert
you're
on this,
saying.
man.
And the crux of what you're asking is what's the return on investment, right? Because if you allocate $1 million into MERS instead of a new building,
Yeah,
you know what, and I can say for this year, we have the rates as of October 1st and it was a 28% reduction in the MERS contribution for the command group, which is significant. They were 142 in the prior fiscal year, so that's a 28 reduction on all of our command staff. I think it was 3% for the sheriff non-soup, and then it varied by the other groups. I'm gonna present those in June, but that was what our first salvo. But that's a 3 million injection in 1 year plus adding 5 years. So I will have to see the report in its entirety so I can try to tease out, okay, what did the 5 years adding do? Because you refinance your car, adding 2 years, your payment goes down. So, right, but then putting the money up front. So I'll have to tease out so I can get a figure, but my goal is to have that. And I may have to work with MERS to get it, but for every million, you can anticipate next year impact of X percent.
sure. I think that's what, I mean, that's what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
I know that will be helpful to the public as well as they understand, this budget season that we're going into and why we're wanting, or at least some of us are wanting to inject extra amounts of money into that because of the long-term benefit. Thank you.
Yeah, from an expense standpoint, that is, if you're going to bat against a battleship, that is the thing you throw all your artillery at, right? That is the big weight that we have to take on. And we're doing it with gusto because it didn't start earlier. Had we started even an incremental 5-10 years earlier, we would be, but we're doing the work now, and I look forward to continuing that discussion next month, hopefully with more information once we get the report.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? All right, thank you, Ben.
Yeah.
Moving on to
Work group, purchasing work group met this month. Very productive discussions. We're going to meet next month before public safety again. We hadn't been able to meet for a couple months with just Connie's retirement, us stepping in, losing staff in our office. It's been it's been hectic, but we've picked the ball back up and we'll continue to give you reports before we present a policy recommendation.
Thank you. On to item 16, miscellaneous. Resolution to honor 100 years of aviation at the Capital Regional International Airport. And I think Commissioner Moudry would like to.
Chair, as a member of the airport committee, I would like to submit a motion for resolution to honor Lansing Airport Authority in their 100 years of existence. Now, this airport started out in what was called Chandler's Marsh. I can't think of anything worse than landing or taking off from a marsh, but that was 100 years ago. Different airplanes. This was, our airport here in Lansing actually began only 13 years after Orville and Wilbur Wright had their first flight in North Carolina. So I think it's a great honor of ours to honor them for their 100-year anniversary. Thank you. So I make a motion.
For the first flight. Okay, so moved and supported. Any discussion, questions, comments? All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right, thank you, Commissioner Moudry.
I think they have some special out to the airport too, where they're giving kids from 2 to 17 free rides too, and there'll be other activities to celebrate. Mark, aren't we getting something in our emails?
I'm not sure.
I think so, because I've sent it twice over to my son to put my grandson on that plane.
I'm not sure whether Jeannie is related to Orville and Wilbur, right? But, you know, we could investigate that, I guess.
All right, moving on to item 17, county bills and procurement.
Sorry. I was going to give an update on the command vehicle under miscellaneous, just there were questions out of this committee last month, so I let you know I would dig in. And so I just wanted to give kind of an update because it's projects that take 2 to 3 years to carry out. It can be really difficult to remember what was the original discussion around it, when did it happen, and so as much for members of the public. So in the county first voted to accept what was a state enhancement grant from LEO, the Labor Economic Opportunity Agency, with the state of Michigan. That was in fiscal year 23-24. This was a direct appropriation sponsored by State Senator Anthony and State Representative Whitwer at the request of the sheriff. The proposal to accept the funding for purchasing the vehicle moved forward at Public Safety on October 5th, 2023. It was referred to Ways and Means, where it was voted on October 13th, 2023, and then adopted by the full board October 18th. And that moved us forward with applying for the grant and moving forward with the vehicle. October 24th, 23, we did preliminary contract and purchase order that was executed, and the final purchase agreement was with a firm called Halt Fire, Inc., which was completed November 6th of 23. With specialty projects like this, it usually takes 1 to 2 years to get it. So you have to get on the manufacturer's list, locked in under a contract so that they put you into their building schedule. On May 22nd, 2025, Halt Fire, Inc. was actually bought out by Reliant Fire Apparatus, and that meant that the county at that time had evaluated, was there a possibility to cancel the vehicle or not? We were under contract. The cost for doing that would have been quite prohibitive, and so it was agreed not to, and we just stayed the course. So we re-executed the agreement with the new company that had bought. On January 16th, Ways and Means approved a budget amendment for $25,000 for extending the size of the door for the sheriff's storage facility to hold the vehicles. This was then approved at January 21st, 2026. There was also a reauthorization because we had to install technology to make it compatible with Central Dispatch's operations. So that was also reappropriated at that time. Chad spoke earlier. Originally, we thought we were going to do a contractor bid and have 3 and come back, but using internal resources, he was able to keep the segments of the project under 10,000, and so he moved forward with doing that so he could execute it. And the modification is underway, as he shared earlier. Yesterday, we received our reimbursement from the state of Michigan for the $900,000, so that is on the books. And from a grant standpoint, the way this works with the capital purchase, the year that we go forward with it, that contract with the state allows us to record the expense, but also the upcoming revenue as what will be a receivable in the future. So we balanced our budget at that time with an offset equation, counting that we were going to get the money from the state. So now that that reimbursement's done, we'll have our final reporting period to the granting agency, and that will close out the book on this appropriation. So I just wanted to provide that update back because there were a lot of questions related to it.
Okay, any questions or comments? So at this point, Ben, this thing is fully functional.
I believe so. Yep, I'm getting a nod from
Nathan's
Nathan.
saying yes. Okay. You've taken it for a joyride? No? All right, Commissioner Barber.
Yeah, I'm still on the record of wanting to sell it as soon as possible.
All right. Any other comments, questions? All right. So at this point, with that reimbursement, how much do we as a county have invested in it over and above?
Was it 66,000 or was it less than that?
It was less than that. It was 34,000 and some change.
So 34 for the tech, 25, less than 25 once we get the final figures, but 50.
Yes.
We can get the final figure when the construction's done for those two.
All right. Okay, any other questions on that?
Pretty good deal for 35,000 investment.
Only if it's used.
It'll be used.
Well, excuse me, just a moment. This is for horrible things that go on. We hope it's not used.
I was here when they ran the semi at 69 into the bridge over there at Kreitz Road exit. That was pretty darn important.
Mm-hmm. But like I said, it's catastrophic events. We don't hope for catastrophic events.
And we used it when the train was derailed over there in Potterville. So we have it.
Okay.
Maybe-
Commissioner Barber.
Ask the commissioner, you said that we used this vehicle during the train derailment?
No, we didn't.
Might have
But
been,
we didn't have the vehicle.
Oh, we had the trailer. Okay, sorry. I knew we were out there because we had to close an exit.
But that's a very good point, right? We used the emergency trailer, right? That we already had. That's my point.
Okay, so we're back to approval of bills. Do I have a motion?
Oh, I pay the bills. I make a motion.
Moved and have support. All right, there we go. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Okay, we're down to item 18, budget discussion. And I think that's,
I'll be CIP. Melissa, if you want to take point in presenting.
Certainly. Okay, so before you, you have updated budget projections. I did include this month the future projections of these expenses and revenues. As with every projection, it is an estimate. It is throwing the dart, and we try to be as accurate as we can be. However, we can only do a little bit. So keep that in mind as things change. There's a couple of things that I'd like to note. We do have the same amount of revenue for the Delta Sheriff contract that was in there from the prior fiscal year's budget. That has not been updated. That is because we are still finalizing the contract with Delta for the budget for next year. The contract is final, but the budget is not. So I did not want to change that without having final information on that. We also have not completed the cost allocation plan for our office, which drives the cost for the transfers from Delta as well as the transfers from Central Dispatch and some of our other self-generating revenue funds. So those will change based on that cost allocation plan. The numbers right now are just from last year. I do have updated numbers for salaries, which is included, as well as a contribution for MERS and for retirees' health. Trying to think if there's, we do also have a number for a dollar amount for our JCI project, as well as bank intercounty drain and capital debt fund. So those debt service funds are allocated and identified separately for you. Are there any questions on this initial page?
No, just add one thing. There are 2 line items for additional payments. One's to MERS at $700,000, and the other is to the retirees' health at $250,000. That is above and beyond the unassigned fund balance that we just talked about. So eventually, if we do adopt an unassigned fund balance and send a payment to MERS, that will be an immediate current year transfer that we do. This is us also setting aside through the budget for the next fiscal cycle, which we time those payments because our fiscal year is October 1st. We will make those additional contributions before December 31st. The reason being is when MERS evaluates our rates, they go on calendar years. So we get as much of our prepayment in before the end of the calendar year so that it has the biggest impact on our rates 2 years from now.
Commissioner Barber.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. And thank you for all the times you called on me. I appreciate you allowing me to have this time to speak. I think if we look at these projections, we look at 27, 28, I see we're running a deficit again. So just so everybody knows, I'm not always a smart man, but when we run a deficit, it means we got to look for some more revenue, or we have to look for some more savings.
You will also notice that there is a substantial increase in 28, 29 for salaries and fringes. That is because our jail millage will be ending, and so we will be bringing positions back from that jail millage.
Shaver.
A couple of things I would, in reference to Commissioner Barber's comment, I would say it's both. We have to look for places to cut as well as places to grow, not the government, but the income. I'm not the smartest guy in the room, but when I see other like that, it says supplies and other, and remember, I'm the new person, so just humor me. What's the other? I know what supplies are, but it's not an inconsequential amount that falls underneath that. You're looking at about 10 million. I know what supplies would be. What's the other?
So that ends up being a bunch of things, transfers to other departments. So for supplementing the road crew or for the front of the court funds, so transfers to those departments. We just didn't itemize that because historically they were, while not insignificant, were not needed to be itemized like salaries and fringes had been. It also accounts for contractual services and items like that, such as monies for CMH, that sort of thing. Those all end up in that. It's kind of a everything else category.
So it's a big roll-up then
Yes,
of a whole bunch of, and so we'll see a breakdown of that in a later.
I can absolutely do that, but that is also broken down further in the packet.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments? All righty.
So I did also include for you something that we've included in the past, which is our position allocation listing. So that is as it is currently, based on all the budget amendments that have been done to date. So that includes all of the positions for tech services for our office. Those are all included. I did include the scale, so the highest and lowest cost for those. Yep, there you go. As well as the fringe benefits, the highest and lowest cost of those fringe benefits. So that way you have full picture cost of how much each position costs the county. And then the very last page of that is a reconciliation showing how much has changed from the last adopted budget.
Any questions from Melissa?
Thank you.
Okay, Melissa, thank you.
You're welcome.
Excuse me, on to item B, capital improvement program.
Right, so I'll do a bit of an intro, but we have Eric Daly with Technology Services here, Chad Powers with Facilities, so you'll get to hear from them again. Capital improvement program is something that we took up in earnest 3 years ago, so I think this is the third version that we've officially adopted like this. Prior to Controller Sobey taking the position, we had kind of a haphazard spreadsheet for Chad's projects, but we really didn't have a good vision for our technology. So we wanted to integrate the two. So CIPs are a 6-year snapshot on a rolling period. What do you envision your expenses to be for physical infrastructure and tech? So over the 6-year period, we've got an estimate here where the needs for capital improvements to facilities would be $10 million. Of that allocation, we're estimating over 6 years, $6.8 million would be, sorry, I'm having difficulty reading this, my apologies. So 6.8 million of that is going to be for like projects not associated with buildings. 3.4 million of it, or 38.9%, would be significant building projects such as animal control, building replacement. This is why we're trying to get state or federal funds for that, so we can mitigate that as not an obligation through general fund. We did bond for capital improvement, which we have to spend through July of 2028. There is an option for a second series bond offering through that original allocation up to 12 million of the original offering. If we choose to do that, the board will have the decision to make July of 28. And then of 10.6 million total, 5.1 is estimated to be what would be a general fund expense. And that's not just for capital projects, that's also maintenance and what we currently put into the capital improvement fund. So both new and ongoing. Okay, technology infrastructure needs, 4.2 million toward capital improvement investments for technology over the next 6 years. Of that, 3.7 million will require general fund dollars. The ongoing maintenance expense will be 7.2 million. Of that, 90.9% would require general fund dollars. The estimated combined total required for capital improvement over that time is 11.4. Of that, we're looking at 89.6 as the estimate in general fund dollars. So we plan through this. If we have to bond, if we have to start saving money and setting it aside, that's what the computer fund is for. That's what the capital improvement program is meant to do, is show you what those expenses are. So if we need to set money aside to be able to meet that, we do that through the budget process. If there are projects where we can get more time out of them, we will defer them if it's responsible to do so. But at some point, we really make sure that we're hitting the high priority items. That's the brief intro. I'll welcome up Eric, if you want to go first. And he can talk at length more for the technology.
Hello again. So basically our portion of the CIP plan is essentially a rinse and repeat of last year's iteration. A lot of the same technologies were listed in there. These are your core critical infrastructure pieces. These are your cybersecurity initiatives, your firewalls, your switches, your virtual server environments. I don't have a copy of it in front of me, but essentially these are all projects that qualify of a $25,000 expenditure or more. I'm happy to report that based on our projections, the last 2 iterations of this, we're still right on our mark. We're actually exceeding some of the projected life cycles of some of the equipment, or we're right on target. But in short, a lot hasn't changed from the last iteration. I think the only iteration that we've changed in this, we've acknowledged printers in here now, and large format copy machines. I believe that is the only new line item for tech that you'll see in there now. So we wanted to, essentially realize those expenditures that are coming up. Those are something that wasn't historically under the purview of tech services. Those were purchased through the controller's office, but the direction of previous controller Sobey wanted to move that under the purview of tech services. So that's why we added that now. So does that answer everybody's questions? Ben, did I cover what you wanted?
Yeah, I think so. And we purposefully tried to leave out too much information just because this is a public document, but happy to have discussions that are, this is just meant to be a snapshot that maintains the integrity of our work that Eric does.
Okay, thank you.
Questions for Eric? All right, Chad, you're up.
Okay, my portion of it is obviously buildings and grounds related. We take a deep look at our needs for infrastructure, whether it be a new roof on a building or an aging piece of mechanical equipment. The elevators are a good example. So it's a projection. We look at every year, project out and prioritize projects and needs across the complex. This year, obviously, the elevators again are on the docket. We did some fire alarm upgrades. I'm going off of memory too. So yeah, that's kind of it in a nutshell. If you look through it, and then we sit down every year and can we divert these? Do we have to do them right away? And that's kind of how we assess them and move the CIP year to year. So every year, stuff will come off of it, stuff will go on, and it'll continue to roll out that way.
Okay, any questions? I don't see any, Chad.
I think I'm done.
All right.
Motion to adjourn.
This would be an action item if it can be adopted. Every time we go out to bond, this is one of the things that our financial management firms need to have a copy of when they evaluate our bond status, so.
Okay. So any discussion on what we already heard? Do I have a motion?
Support.
Moved and supported. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? All right. On to item 19, limited public comment. If you'd like to address this committee, step to the podium, introduce yourself. You have approximately 3 minutes. Seeing no movement, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
Support.
All right, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks, everybody.